Now, the twisted MSM rehabilitation of ISIS bride Shamima Begum's image took another grotesque turn this week after the runaway jihadist appeared as a cover girl for the Times magazine. The 23-year-old, who lost her British citizenship back in 2019 for joining the death cult, has been thrust back into the spotlight in recent weeks after she was given a platform by the shameless BBC in a podcast, and I still can't believe it was called this. I am not a monster. I beg to differ. And Begum's turn as a warped cover girl sparked outrage across the country as her dangerous new celebrity status fills ordinary Brits with fear. So why is the left so keen to present a terrorist sympathiser as some sort of victim whose story deserves to be told? Joining me now, former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major General Chip Chapman. Chip, great to have you on this. What do you make of what's going on here with Shamima Begum? Why is there a push to not only rehabilitate her, but to turn her into some sort of celebrity?
Well, Shamima Begum has become the product, and they're selling her rehabilitation, and they're doing that by the way that you'd market a book. It is marketing, advertising, PR and rebranding to show her as a sort of normal person. And part of the reason for this, of course, is there is a legal case going on at the moment about whether she should have the right to come back to fight her citizenship case. Now, that's the key thing. It is not the fact that the government rescinded her citizenship in February 19. And I think they did that, of course, legally from their perspective, because under the 1961 UN Convention on Statelessness, you can't make someone stateless. They didn't. They used a legal term called jus sanguinis, which means inheritance through the father or the mother. And therefore, through her Bangladeshi upbringing or her parentage, she has dual citizenship. So rather like the other 150 people of the 900 who went to Syria to support ISIS, she had her citizenship revoked. So that is
a good reason, you know. Yeah, Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary at the time, said, "Believe me, if you know what I know, you would not want this woman as a British citizen." I mean, you say this is the total Disneyfication of Shamima's story. What do you mean by that?
Well, they're trying to turn her into something she wasn't, and for two reasons, really. Firstly, they're trying to say that she was a victim, and that she was trafficked. And secondly, they're saying she was groomed. Now, if you look at the chronology of this, so by September 14, we already had Jihadi John doing his evil deeds with his other Beatles, and Alan Henning, the British humanitarian worker, was beheaded. In 2011, or from 2011, with the Syrian civil war, the FCO had said that people shouldn't travel to Syria. So the sort of notion that she didn't know what was going on and that she fled Britain rather than willingly went to Syria is farcical. It's just not true in terms of that timeline. Now, under a thing called the Palermo Protocol, trafficking can be something that you do, and they will try and play on that. But trafficking must meet the notion that there is a threat or the use of force or other forms of coercion for you to be trafficked. And I don't see anything that with Shamima Begum. She went willingly. And the final part of the denouement from a counter-terrorist perspective is that 40% of people who went to Syria came back in the first year either disillusioned or knew it wasn't the city on the hill. She stayed there until the end. She was caught at Berguz, which is where the final stand of ISIS was. So, you know, we should have no truck with what she's trying to do in this sort of rebranding that she and other people are giving herself. Indeed,
absolutely. So Major General, we've got to think about why this is happening, because Jihadi Jack, who has been allowed back into Canada under the very liberal government of Justin Trudeau, there's no big media rehabilitation towards him. Now, I put it to you that that's because he is a white male. Just like if you were a white male who left the country to join a neo-Nazi organisation, there would not be a rehabilitation effort. It feels like because Shamima Begum is a Muslim woman, for some reason, there's more sympathy for what she's done. But I believe that what she's done is evil and dangerous, and her returning to the country would put British citizens under threat.
Well, she was a member of the Al-Hansa Brigade, which is an all-female police unit tasked with the enforcement of strict laws. So she wasn't a benign participant. She was an active participant. And certainly in terms of the revocation of her citizenship, it was the security threat and the risk to the UK which led to the intelligence agencies giving the information to the Home Secretary to rescind her citizenship. Now, I know from the people who were there when she was debriefed in Syria that they know what some of the things that she did, but of course there's a difference between those things and revoking her citizenship and getting that in terms of evidence if you want to prosecute her. Now, of course, you could manage her return if you're saying that just because she was a Muslim and not white that she should be allowed back in, and she could be managed. There's certain things that you can do, a thing called the TEO, the Temporary Exclusion Order, to manage her to come back to the country, and she might win the court case to do so. That doesn't mean she wins her citizenship. And you could also use a TPIM, a temporary implementation management strategy to get her back to the UK. The larger strategic issue, of course, is that she is one of many, many people in the two camps in Hasaka province, which may have been affected actually at the moment by the earthquake, and they're in Al-Hol and Al-Raj. That is the more strategic issue. So the Americans, for example, would say there is a doomsday scenario where you still have 2,000 foreign fighters, 10,000 of their family, and alongside them you have 50,000 Iraqis and Syrians, which somehow need to be dealt with. Otherwise you get, from what the Americans' perspective, a doomsday scenario where you have a Camp Bucca or an Abu Ghraib, the womb that gives birth to new generations of extremists.